Hey there,
Hello
and welcome.
and welcome.
Comics Solving Problems.
Comic-
I'm Stephen Allen.
And I'm Eric McElroy. This is the midnight recap of our show that we did earlier in the evening. I'd say, I guess, technically yesterday because it's midnight, so that means it's tomorrow.
Very
But
true.
this is where there's a more relaxed intro. The actual show's coming up where we're comics, we solve problems. You'll catch on pretty quickly. But we can also say if we enjoyed ourselves today. Steve, did you enjoy your show today?
I did indeed. It was a lively one. Well, actually, let's be honest. We can talk tales out of school in this moment. I spent all day recording one sketch for this show. Everything else was flung together after 7:30, which when you think we go live at 9. And we do stuff. We do like a meeting at 8, so at 7:30. So I had an hour to put everything else together. Spent 3 hours recording one sketch, and hopefully, if you watch the show, it should be fairly obvious what it is.
But I think the other thing that made this show different and better and more unique, and possibly, I mean, if there were awards for whatever the hell we're doing, it would be award-winning, was your new silent mouse.
That's true. Yeah.
Show us the mouse.
We didn't talk about this, I think.
This
one. Right, now I just need to make sure that the pointer is on a place where it's not going to do any damage. Here we are. Okay. So normally, in the show, I'd be using this mouse. And then in the background, you could hear...
Make it stop!
Whereas now, if I'm changing from scene to what was that?
What?
Beg pardon?
What are you going to do it? Because I didn't hear anything. I don't hear.
Silent mouse. Look, everyone, if you watch videos on YouTube about how to do home streaming, they're all talking about expensive lights and really great cameras. No one has mentioned the £9 silent mouse. So maybe I'm going to do a video on this, and no one's going to watch it.
Wow, yeah. Don't brag. We still need money, folks, if you want to donate during the show.
There's a link. Throw some money in that direction, that'd be much appreciated.
Jeez,
if you could cover the £9 for the mouse, that'd really help a guy out.
That'd be helpful. Yeah, that's an expense there. Can't afford that based on what the Chancellor's given us. But we'll talk about all that stuff. We'll talk about the news, talk about the election, talk about UK, what's happening in the COVID era. And it's a fun little recap of the day's events, I think.
So let's sit back, enjoy, let's press some play and have some fun.
See ya.
Hello and welcome to Comics Solving Problems. I'm Stephen Allen.
And I'm Eric McElroy. Good evening.
Hello. Half-hour comedy show. This is what we're doing right here, twice a week. We look at the problems in the news, you can send us problems, and we solve them because there is no one better at solving problems on this show in camera during these hours. And that is a Stephen Allen promise. Asterisk, not actually a promise. So you can message wherever you like. We'll put the little thing up as well, so you can get subscribed to the YouTube for all the previous episodes, the clips, and all future episodes as well. And if you're sitting down now, you get your drink, maybe there's some popcorn. I don't know what you're doing. Maybe you're watching it on YouTube, you're slinging it up to the TV to make it more like a televisual entertainment experience. You can also share the link in whichever medium you're watching this. Spread the link around. And
spread it.
And later on, we'll start begging as well for money. But more on that still to come. And the reason we mention that is because it's not necessarily been a good day for money.
Nope.
Yeah, there's Rishi leaving number 11 Downing Street with his report that looks like it's already been redacted. Good God.
Yep.
How bad were things? So it's truth. He gave us his little latest on that. What's your take on it, Eric?
Yeah, so for those of you watching from outside the UK, he's the Chancellor of the Exchequer, he's the Treasury Secretary, and he's the one who Boris Johnson lays it up, and Rishi has to pay for it. So it's kind of like me and my wife. I'm like, that's a good idea. She's like, how are we going to budget this, sweetheart? Nice. And the way he's budgeted, because Boris Johnson announced this week that we're going to have a semi-lockdown for the next 6 months. So the question became, how are people like ourselves, whose industry is basically kind of bearing the brunt end of the shutdown, because live gigs can't occur if they continue after 10 o'clock in a lot of venues. A lot of gigs aren't happening anyway, because for some reason, people don't want to sit in a confined space and laugh out loud with a disease that's mostly spread by aerosol.
Makes no sense.
I don't know what's wrong with the general public. Idiots. So we thought there'd been a very, semi-decent self-employment grant, because you're self-employed.
Yep.
A lot of us are self-employed in the industry. We've been getting 70, 80% of what our previous earnings were, which, to be fair, I'd take that on a good year. And he said, how much you going to get next time around? Of that
20%. 20% of the amount that we claimed after we'd really worked hard to try and claim every darn expense. So 20% felt like he might as well have just got a handful of notes, stuffed it in your top pocket, tapped you on the arse and said, get yourself something nice, treacle. It's just walking around money, which is odd because the one thing they don't want us to do is walk around.
It almost makes me feel bad for not paying any tax at all and hiding all that. I don't really want to talk about that. But, I mean, it is, I don't understand. So because if you're in a sector that's continued to be impacted by this disease, and we are, and understandably, I mean, I don't want people to get sick just because they come and see me. I mean, they'll feel sick after they see me, but for different reasons.
Yeah.
And so, okay, fine. I'm willing to make the sacrifice to not gig as much, and everything will come back, and one way or another, we will get through this. But then to say, well, so what are we supposed to? I mean, for the other 80%, are we supposed to just stand on the street corner and tell jokes?
I don't know, because that would be still near people. At least it would be outside. We've all tried to do some outside gigs, but there's no way we could get 80% of our time back. Work back doing the small, because normally I think I've done 5 gigs since the lockdown thing started. That would be a busy week, or that would be like 2 weeks. I'd definitely cover 5 gigs.
Yeah,
and it's been longer than 2 weeks. But I mean, this shouldn't just be a moan about from the point of view of self-employed. And I know we've got a lot of self-employed people who watch this stuff. And I mentioned earlier on Twitter that when I sat down to watch that moment, I looked at that screen and realised it felt like going to the reading of a will from a relative who really couldn't stand you. I knew at some point there was going to be the message of, well, you should have got a proper job, Steve. And maybe he's right. Maybe I should have done that rather than trying to chase the dream. But it's not great now. I also wish to complain about the fact that the government said they'd pay a third of your wage for this wage bailout thing that they're doing. I've got a maths complaint.
Oh, no.
Actually, we could have done this by
This will be the rest of the show, won't it?
Yeah. So what happens is the employer pays a third, and then the government pays a third of the remaining 2/3.
Well, how many thirds is that?
Exactly. So your employer pays a third, leaving you with 2/3, and the government pays a third of 2/3.
Thirds of 2/3. Yep. Divided by 4
is
times
1.
6.
So your numerator is 1 times 8. 2. Your denominator is the 3 times 3. So it's 2/9. 2/9 is not the same as a third. 3/9 is a third. They're ripping us off by a 9th. Stitching time saves 9.
This is not an 8th.
Ritz me.
You know what I mean?
Oh, is that a Drudge reference? Look at you, so cool.
I think so. I don't really know. I've heard that.
So I still can't believe, though, that the government are just pulling a fast one about, we pay a third of 2/3. Why are they lying about fractions? Oh, God, it drains me.
This is the Chancellor of the Exchequer, right? It's not like he needs...
Yeah,
oh, dear.
To be able to do vulgar fractions. I find that fraction a very vulgar maths joke.
Yeah. I mean, watching the speech today, it was definitely... Yeah, the left out of the will thing, I think, is a good way to say it, because he had one line about the self-employed. And I know we're banging on about it, but... hello, it's us.
Yeah.
And so one line about the self-employed, it was, we will continue the self-employment grant with modifications similar to furlough. And when that was that little asterisk of like that little, it was like the drug commercials that they have in the States. This drug will cure everything you have. Will cause diarrhea and cause death. It was one of those moments, because all immediately comedians were like, oh my God, we're going to pay 70%, man. This is going to be like Jungler's Christmas back in the day. And no.
No, 20%. Yeah. That is not similar to 80 or 70%. That is a far bigger jump of a fraction than ripping us off by a 9th, and they've done that as well.
It's like a third, I think.
Oh, look at that! There's the maths. Yeah, so rough times, tough times for the money, which is why we will keep mentioning that if you're enjoying the show, normally we just like the idea of making a bit of money from this, which we spend on better tech and nicer stuff. But now, sweet mercy, we might need some of this money. So if you enjoy the show at all, there's a link near the stream where you can chuck some money in our pots.
And everything you've put in will be matched 20% by the government.
Might as well say that, yeah. They'll give us that 9th back that they ripped us off.
Shit. Anyway, so no, we just ranted about that. That's a problem for us, really. I mean, we talk about problems on the show. The problem is that we're screwed, aren't we?
Yeah.
Right. But let's talk about the real problems in the world, because that's what we like to cover. And if you have problems during the show, I can't remember if you said this, Steve, you can send them to us as well. Throughout the show, we'll try and solve your problems. But there are some other things out there, aren't there?
Yep.
And this is a problem, Steve. What do you do when you're stuck leading a democracy? What do you do, Steve? What do you? Because a democracy is all about essentially a peaceful transfer of power from one leader to another. That's a tricky bit of it. Donald Trump was asked about that recently at a press conference, and this was the question he was asked.
Win, lose, or draw in this election, will you commit here today for a peaceful transferal of power after the election?
Commit to a peaceful transfer of power. Now, you would think for most people that's a softball question, isn't it? You just go, yeah, of course, I believe in democracy, no problem. But Trump, he likes to throw his own little wrinkle on these things. So here's what he had to say.
We're going to have to see what happens. You know that I've been complaining very strongly about the ballots, and the ballots are a disaster.
Whoa. We're going to see what happens with what is allegedly, like they like to talk about themselves as the greatest democracy in the history of humanity. We're just going to see what happens, with the ballots. To be fair, actually, I'm going to be fair with Trump on this one. Because have you seen this ballot he's talking about? Oh, that is some bad ballot, Steve.
That's a nasty ballot, yeah.
You got to watch out for those girls. That's not what he was talking about. I don't want to. He wasn't.
What were you Googling for, by the way, to even find that clip? I don't. What are they?
We'll talk about that separately. Trump was talking about the upcoming presidential election. Now, he's railed on a lot about this imaginary voter fraud and about, bad ballots and good ballots and the type of, ballots that are out there, but he does have a solution to it, basically, to just, essentially get rid of it. Here's his solution.
Get rid of the ballots and we'll have a very peaceful, there won't be a transfer, frankly. There'll be a continuation.
Oh, God.
There you go. That's it. That's the president of the United States essentially saying, we don't really need an election. And this isn't the first time he said something like this. He was saying if the economy had been going as well as it had been going before COVID, that we wouldn't have needed an election at all. That things would have been so good he could just stay in power. Now, I know this is a comedy show. I don't like to get serious. Anytime you get it sincere, I would just want to punch myself in the face or get kicked in the stomach by a young girl in a tutu. But what he is saying is an attack on the foundation of what makes a democracy function, is that the one leader loses and accepts that he loses or she loses eventually and moves on, like Hillary Clinton did. She won the popular vote, but she accepted that the American system said that she has to move on. Now you think, like, how did Hitler ever get in power? How did these other countries fall apart? This is how. And you realize how simple it is basically when the person who's in power loses, they say, well, you're supposed to go now. And they just go, no, not going to do it. And it's just the powerlessness of what? Well, but you're supposed to. And then you just go, no, I don't want to go. And then everybody just goes, oh, shit, there's nothing we can do. That's what's going to happen. There's nothing we can do to make Trump leave, except there might be this one thing.
I have to leave for an emergency phone call.
That's it. American democracy's not that much in trouble. That was the same press conference where he's like, there might not be any transfer of power at all. I have to go answer the phone. So, maybe the White House operators, off for the days he's covered for. Now, you have to think, he left the press conference after that. Who was so important that he had to take that call? We got it here. Hey, Donnie, how's it going? What's the shizzle? I'm not interrupting anything important, am I?
Nice.
Acting.
Method.
Now,
method chair swivel. Good.
For those of us who kind of like America and like democracy, it's been kind of a depressing couple of days. I'll be honest with you, Steve. But I want to give people a nice little moment. So Trump went to pay respects to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. He had to step outside of the Supreme Court where she lay in rest, God bless her. And there was a crowd there that weren't his followers. And this glorious moment happened. So he didn't stay out there for very long. Yeah. I wonder, what was it that made him leave to go inside?
I have to leave for an emergency phone call.
I'm telling you, it works every time, Steve.
Yeah.
It works every time.
Yeah. Could you, for those people who've not really heard of Donald Trump, what is he famous for eating?
Buckets of Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah. So I think an emergency phone call is a desperate dump. It's all that greasy food. I just got to take an emergency phone call, John.
Yeah, that's my phone call. Ugh, bless him.
How long are you going to be on the phone for? I mean, maybe like 10 minutes, but you probably want to give it 15. Some of the messages coming through, don't forget you get subscribed, share the stuff around. We're talking about Donald Trump, because I think you're right, that Donald Trump, by having an election that you don't accept the result of, that's how you become a dictator. It's not by saying no more elections, it's by delegitimizing the election result. Chris says, didn't Robert Mugabe use that line once? Whatever happened to him? And then Mark says he moved to
be
Yorkshire.
fair, Mugabe stayed in power a long fucking time.
This is the worry.
So he's not the role model we need to give Trump. Don't give him any ideas, okay?
Yeah. Mark says he moved to Yorkshire and spelled his surname backwards, Ibagum. Because it's Mugabe backwards. Oh, and people in Yorkshire say like Ibagum.
What does it mean?
Okay. Just it's an exclamation. As simple as that. I can't explain the Yorkshire ways.
But I get an Emmy for that, Mark says. All the acting you do. Maybe a BAFTA, but who gives a shit about those?
Oh yeah, you get the ones that are dished out by the people in hazmat suits. Yeah, very very on brand. There's the Twitter things. If you want to send us some messages, as long as that emergency phone call doesn't involve any finger licking. Oh, ugh.
Ooh.
And then we were talking about the fact that if you could throw some money in our direction, it might be needed thanks to Rishi. Mark says
20% matched by the UK government.
Yeah, Chris says, is that like gift aid? And Mark says more like grift aid. Do you know what? Whatever it is, as long as there's some money in the pot by the end of it. And there's talk of the fact that it's Mark's birthday. More on that later. We've got an extra mention for you later, Mark. But I suppose that means you could do the gift part of it. I'm sure you've had some of those. Send us some aid. You get the gifts. We'll get the aid. No, hang on. We need some help. Is what I'm trying to say with that. I got trickier than I thought. Right.
So another problem, Steve.
Yeah. The problem is the app. How do you make the app actually work? Matt Hancock has been trying. He spent all morning going on various media outlets, although when he was on Sky, it was an awkward moment when Kay Burley asked him why he was no longer doing that thing before they went on air that she really enjoyed.
And very quickly, before I let you go, maybe you'll need to cover the children's ears at home this morning. How long is this casual sex ban going to last?
Well, I didn't know that's what they got up to in the green room. It's an awkward, tense moment to do on TV, isn't it?
Wow.
But the app is out. In fact, there you go. There's the screenshot of it. It's called the NHS COVID-19 app. It's been launched in England and Wales. I've got it on my phone here.
Well done. That's good.
It did take me a while because I had to go out and buy a burner because you don't want people actually being able to track you, do you? So I've got it all there. It says my app is scanning. Let's have a look. In fact, what I can try and do is, the terribly bad coloured skanky cam over here.
Ooh, skanky cam.
Get skanky cam.
Is that what we use for casual sex?
Yeah. So there you go. Look at this. You can see we've got some bad lighting because the one in the background, but it shows you that your app is active and scanning. And look at that little scanning thing. There are no dots on it.
Okay.
I wanted dots, if I'm honest. Like,
so
in
dot
Aliens.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be a bit like that when all of a sudden you just see like where the people with COVID are, so you could back away. Although
they're underneath us.
Yeah, they're in the ceilings. Although actually, I've decided you might not want to avoid the people with COVID because this lets you know if you've been near someone who's got it. Yeah. If you're forced to stay at home, then you get 500 quid. So that might be one way to get some money out of Rishi. I'll take this phone, leave it near the local hospital, see if I'm near anyone who's got a bit of the COVIDs. Yeah. See if I can get it sorted out.
Nice.
It's probably the only way to make any money out of it. The app, it's nice that you've got it. It also means that you can do things like, as you may have seen then, you can check your symptoms, you can check into venues, got a QR code scanner, the latest advice. Also, I do like the thing down the bottom, you can just turn off contact tracing. Well, that makes it so much better. It tells you what your threat's like in your local area. Mine's currently medium. I'm not sure if that's great or not. But all day, people have been talking about this on the news, and they've been doing these explainer special reports on it. So if other news outlets are doing it, I think we should be doing that too. So I filed my special report on the app. This is a smartphone used by millions to waste their lives on social media, to photograph their genitals, or for some strange people to make and receive phone calls. But it can also track where you've been. And that is what the government's counting on. From today, people in England and Wales can install the new NHS COVID-19 app. If you are in an area that is high risk, it will give you advice on what action to take. For some, that advice will be to self-isolate for 14 days. But for others, the advice is to take a long drive to Barnard Castle, depending on what you've told it your occupation is. I spoke to a technology expert to find out more.
Yes, it's very good that the technology is being released. Sadly, the app is only available for phones newer than the iPhone 6, which statistically, vulnerable groups like the elderly tend to use older smartphones, brick phones, or in many cases simply pick up a remote control, press the buttons and wonder why it don't work.
The technology uses Bluetooth to connect to devices around you, the same technology that allows perverts to airdrop dick pics onto the phones of strangers. And nice one. Whoever that is, it's nice, it's shiny. Speaking of which, earlier I spoke to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, what would you like this app to do?
Help the public to work together, get the virus.
And if you do get the virus, the app will tell everyone you've been in contact with. If they choose to ignore the warning, no one will ever know, and our Prime Minister will call them freedom-loving. And that's my special report.
Bravo.
Thank you. What is the point of an app where you can just turn it off and we're called freedom lovers for breaking the rules? We didn't even get into that when he did that speech saying that people haven't been sticking to the rules because we're freedom lovers. Stop creeping. Stop trying to placate the bunch of idiots who break rules.
Especially when they're trying to stop us from being casual freedom lovers.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, what Matt Hancock should have said is that they're trying to stop casual sex, encourage people to get married, because then you won't have sex at all.
There you go. Saving lives. Saving lives.
Yeah. Saving lives.
Chris in the message board says tea, coffee, orange juice, and casual threesome between the croissants and donuts. That's what they do in the green room at Sky News. You've been on Sky News. Did you have casual sex with Kay Burley?
Well, I don't like to speak out of school, but I was. There was 4 of us on screen. Me, Kay, and Andre Walker. Oh God, yeah, that was a bad day.
Right. How is that? Times. I mean, I know he's a large chap, but that's not 4 of you.
Yeah, there was, oh God, what's his name? He used to write for Breitbart. Can't remember his name.
Yeah.
It's more of an anecdote than a funny story. But yes, the nice thing is if you ever get to do the papers on Sky, back in the day, you'd get breakfast.
Really?
On Sky, which is normally on the BBC. It's very confusing. Yeah, toast, eggs, coffee. Good times.
I mean, back then it was just a nice perk. Now we will literally work for food. Thank you, Rishi. I'll tell you some jokes if you buy me a sandwich.
Oh, it's never going to happen again.
The message board, Sally says, Trump lying, people dying. We made someone angry by talking about Trump. That's probably true.
Yep. Let me see if I've got anything over here. There we go. And while we've got the subscribe button up, so please do check out the YouTube channel and subscribe because there's clips up there. There's loads of things. Oh, here we go. We've got Joey from America, who's contributed very kindly to the show in the past, said that ballot of cuties. And I just bought an 8. So I'm not quite, I bought an 8.
What is it? Bought an 8?
Oh, an 8th. I think an 8th. There we go.
The only way for us to make money is to start selling drugs? Because they're legal in some places. Could we sell drugs in America?
I think it's fair. You can sell marijuana. We are setting up a Patreon page. We're going to go down that path and figure that out. And it did say I did select that we weren't going to do nudes. So maybe that was a poor choice.
Can we do that as a threat that we'll do nudes unless you send us some money?
Yeah, if you become a subscriber on Patreon, we won't get naked.
We'll do the show. The same show, one version clothed, which you can get for free. One version naked, you get it on YouTube. Yeah. One that's clothed, you got to pay the sweet dollar for it.
Oh, we wear the ties.
Stacey says Trump's a trumpet, putting it politely. I'd put it impolitely. He's an absolute arse. Is that? There you go.
That's where the Trumps come from.
Yeah. And Mark says you need to move from behind the MASH Report news desk. Do you know what? Honestly, I've worked with enough people in local news to know that it's almost a shame that I didn't want to have a proper job, because I film that on my phone, and that's exactly what they do on local news things. They film a bit, they do the voiceover thing too close to the mic, they have someone they interview, blah, 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 blah. So, yeah.
It was good. You got your voice. Mark's asked if we have any hydroxychloroquine. Look,
we could sell
Trump
that.
doesn't even talk about it anymore, and I can say it now, which is fucking infuriating. Hydroxychloroquine.
Well, there you go. Oh dear, you're right, Eric. Struth.
That was quite a show, Steve. I mean, that was a good one. Let me tell you.
You look like you've been thoroughly K-Burlied.
Just okay. Have you met her?
No.
She's a fiery little spitball of hotness.
What does any of that mean? But hey, it's late. Do you know what? You're right. We should all look like we're absolutely pooped.
Just go. We hope you enjoyed that. That's what we did earlier, and then we did again, kind of, but recorded. And it's what we do every Tuesday and Thursday at 9:00.
Yeah.
So
you can search on Amazon Prime. If you've got Amazon Prime, search for Comic Solving Problems. Different versions of the show is going to be up there. And actually, we probably shouldn't say this, but if you've got Amazon Prime and you don't want to watch the show, just play it on mute. Leave the room. We get paid for that. So
I've done that about 8 times.
We're the only ones watching it. That's not true.
So,
and there's the link there as well. If you'd like to chuck some, I don't know how to point at that. There we go.
You have to think which shoulder, because I'm going to think it's that way. See, I mastered it now.
He's getting good at it.
And my beer sign up there. Showing off now. And also, if you enjoyed it, you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, which Steve has the button to put up that now. And you can watch us there. If you could tell people about the show, that would be very much appreciated, because it looks like we're pretty much back in lockdown, and so we are fucked.
Yeah, pretty much so. Brilliant. So, till Tuesday, 9:00.
9:00.
Make a mental note. Other than that, let's say goodbye and try and fade to black.
Just going to finish taking off my clothes.
Oh, quick. Fade to black. Fade to black. Fling.